Hello everyone, Mr. A here again. Another day of March Madness of Picture Books. I had to do a replacement in one of our books because I did not receive the copy in time for today's matchup. So the replacement book is in this bracket here. It was Electrical Wizard, so I had to swap that out for Overground Railroad, which is another book that I had already gotten from the library for my classroom. You might notice kind of a theme or a trend. Last month, February, was Black History Month. We were talking about civil rights in my classroom. We were getting ready to read the story of Ruby Bridges. We had also just finished Bud Not Buddy, a novel study that took place during the Great Depression. So that is why a lot of these books are kind of in that civil rights kind of era and even before. So related topics, because that's what we were studying in my classroom. So a lot of the books that we had in our March Madness bracket that was up in our classroom posted had a lot of these books in it already. So that's why you kind of see that underlying theme in a lot of these books. Anyhow, so today's books are Whoosh by Chris Barton. Whoosh is Lonnie Johnson's super soaking stream of inventions, the story of Lonnie Johnson. And then Overground Railroad. Many of you have heard of the Underground Railroad, but Overground Railroad is maybe a new topic or a new story for some of you. So I hope you guys enjoy. We'll try to keep it short and quick today, as quick as possible. Oh, I almost forgot. Our winner from yesterday is Game Day. Game Day was the winner. And I've also been trying to put the links of these books. So parents, if you're interested in any of these books, look in the description. I have the links to Amazon for any of these books that I've been reading. I've been trying to put them in every day. So go ahead and take a look at that, and let's get started. All right, Whoosh, Lonnie Johnson's Super Soaking Stream of Inventions by Chris Barton. Again, another AR book, AR quiz number. This was from, again, read by Miss Mink, who I mentioned in my very first video, my old mentor. It was read by her during our Read Across America Day when I worked in Morgan Hill last year. So again, there's your quiz number, AR level. So this is an AR book. Hope kids are taking those quizzes. Every day brought a challenge for young Lonnie Johnson. The challenge of finding space for his stuff. 6 Johnson kids were squeezed into their parents' small house in Mobile, Alabama. Lonnie would have loved a workshop of his own, but there just wasn't room. There was nowhere to keep his rocket kits, bamboo shooters, rubber band guns, erector set, go-kart engine, bolts and screws and other spare parts his dad let him bring in from the shed, and various other things he hauled back from the junkyard. Lonnie loved building and creating. Ideas for inventions just kept on flowing. He learned how to make rockets from scratch. Kids at school gathered to watch Lonnie launch them. And he learned how to make rocket fuel. When it caught fire in the kitchen, Lonnie's mom didn't make him stop. She just sent him to work outside. Lonnie wanted to spend his life designing things, building things, and getting them to work. He wanted to be an engineer. However, Lonnie took an exam that said he would not make a very good one. His dream had been challenged. Lonnie was discouraged, but he knew that whoever had graded his test hadn't met Linux. Inspired by a TV show, Lonnie had built his own robot. He made it out of scrap metal and named it Linux. Compressed air cylinders and valves allowed Linux body to turn and its arms to move. The switches came from an old broken jukebox. Lonnie used a tape recorder to program Linux, and as a bonus, the reels looked like eyes. Lonnie wanted to enter his creation in a science fair, but he couldn't get the transmitter to work. Without it, Lonnie couldn't send commands to Linux. Science fairs came and went. Lonnie missed one and then another until he got an idea. Now, Lonnie may or may not have asked before he borrowed his sister's walkie-talkie. But it fixed the transmission issue. His school's team took freshly finished Linux to the 1968 science fair at the University of Alabama, where only 5 years earlier, African American students hadn't been allowed. Having to compete in a place that still wasn't very welcoming. Now that was a challenge with a capital C. Against other schools from all over the state, Lonnie's team won first place. Soon Lonnie left home to go to college at Tuskegee Institute, where he stood out as a self-confident, insightful, creative thinker. He stood out as a student who asked the right questions, precisely defined problems, and formulated solutions. And he stood out as the guy who built his own booming sound system out of a cast-off electronics. It even had lights that flashed in sync with the beat. Lonnie sometimes studied right in the middle of his own parties. The extra studying paid off. He became an engineer after graduation, and that took him beyond Alabama. Way beyond. When NASA was sending an orbiter and probe called Galileo to Jupiter, the space agency needed to ensure a constant supply of power to the orbiter's computer memory. The engineer who had to figure out how to do this was Lonnie. His challenge was to come up with a lightweight backup system able to keep essential functions going in case the main power was lost. It wasn't easy. It wasn't obvious. But Lonnie found a solution. Some at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory doubted his idea would work. Lonnie convinced them that it would. He was right. As it photographed Jupiter and its moons, Galileo was supported by the power package that Lonnie designed. Much of what we know about Jupiter could have been at risk in a power failure, if not for Lonnie. Ideas for other problems to solve just kept on flowing. They flowed whether Lonnie was working with hundreds of people at NASA or up late tinkering in his own inventions in, finally, his own workshop. Lonnie knew the world's millions of refrigerators and air conditioners needed a new cooling system, one that didn't use R12, a chemical that was bad for the environment. He had an idea for using water and air pressure instead. To test his idea, he made a pump and nozzle, connected them to the bathroom faucet, turned on the faucet, turned on the pump, and then... whoosh! The stream that blasted across the bathroom was so powerful, it created a curtain-swirling breeze. It also gave Lonnie an idea for yet another invention. This, he thought, would make a great water gun. First, he had to find or make the parts, including a pump small enough for a child to handle. Then, he had to glue the parts together in a prototype, an early version with room for improvements. Pretty cool. Finally, Lonnie tested his strange-looking squirt gun at a picnic. "Does it really work?" a man asked. "Sure," Lonnie said. "Want to see?" Lonnie worked the pump, which squeezed air into a chamber. When he pulled the trigger, the air escaped, forcing water out with a whoosh. For a water battle to be fair, there couldn't be just one of Lonnie's water guns. He needed help making more. So he went to a toy company after toy company after toy company. The word no flowed again and again. But finally, one company said yes. It planned to make his water gun. Lonnie also had other projects: a water-propelled toy airplane, 2 kinds of engines, and his cooling system. He found investors to provide the money for turning his ideas into products people could buy. He made a leap of faith, quit his day job, and devoted himself to full-time inventing. But soon, each plan fell apart, even the one for the water gun. These things sometimes happen, but when they happen one after another to the same person, well, that's some pretty bad luck. Lonnie didn't have a job. He didn't have the money he'd been counting on. He and his family had to move out of their home and into a little apartment. He was angry and scared. But Lonnie had dealt with challenges all his life. He knew a lot about solving problems, and he still believed in his inventions, especially the water gun. Lonnie went looking for another toy company. In 1989, he found a toy maker who was interested in seeing the water gun if Lonnie had ever happened to be in Philadelphia. "But don't make a special trip," the guy said. Lonnie made a special trip. In his wife's suitcase, he carried a new prototype. He unpacked it, filled the tank with water, pumped the gun until the air pressure was good and high, and whoosh! Wow! Ace, quiet. Kids everywhere agreed with that wow. Lonnie's water gun, called the Super Soaker, became a smash hit. In no time, there were Super Soakers in backyards and on beaches, in parks and on playgrounds. Each sale of the Super Soaker put a little money into Lonnie's pocket. All those hours, all those years that Lonnie spent in his workshop had paid off big time. Now he could afford to do just about anything he wanted. So what did Lonnie do? He got a bigger workshop, which is where you'll find him today. Because facing challenges, solving problems, and building things are what Lonnie Johnson loves to do, and his ideas just keep on flowing. That's the end. All right, next book, Overground Railroad by Lessa Klein Ransom and James Ransom. Some walked, some drove, but we took the train north. Me and Mama and Daddy got to the station crack of dawn early before anyone could see us leave. Daddy holding tight to me with one hand, 3 tickets to New York in the other. The porter helped us on board, then handed us our bags and our shoebox filled with food and tied with the string onto the first train out of North Carolina, just as the conductor yelled, "All aboard, the New York-bound Silver Meteor." Daddy led me to the last seats in the colored car and let me sit next to the window to watch as the train whistled and chugged, leaving puffs of smoke behind. The conductor shouts, "Next stop, Rocky Mount." "No more picking," Daddy said, mad. "No more working someone else's land," Mama said, proud. "We're going to make our own way up north," they both said. Out the window, I watched Blue Ridge mountains and fields with folks already hunched and picking row after row of cotton, tobacco, and peanuts every day, except the Lord's Day, just like my granddaddy. But not anymore for my daddy. At the next stop, more people and boxes and satchels squeezed into the colored car. So many they stood on tired feet or sat on hard floors where they were. Daddy pulled out cards to pass the time. I won at rummy, Daddy at war. In my bag is the book teacher pressed in my hands on the last day of school before we left. Next stop, Norfolk, Virginia. In our straight back seats, when we finish with cards, Mama fusses in her purse, Daddy stares ahead. I take out the book teacher gave me. The cover's worn, pages too. "Read to me, Ruthie," Mama says, and I do. First the title, Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass. Then I turn to the first page. I was born in Tuckahoe near Hillsboro, and about 12 miles from Easton in Talbot County, Maryland. Mama listens till her eyes blink long, longer, then close up, but I keep on. Next stop, Alexandria, Virginia. Out the window, in between pages, I watch as crooked shacks sprout out on the edges of the fields. Folks wave from their doorways, and I wave back. Mama turns in her sleep, restless and dreaming. All around me, everybody leaving for the north talks in Bible words: Exodus, Egypt, Canaan, hoping that Chicago, Detroit, and New York City are the promised land. Next stop, Washington, D.C. The porters come and move signs, waking Daddy, telling everyone in the colored section to sit where they want. We don't have to stay in front behind the engine breathing in smoke, 'cause we're past the line that divides black from white, south from north, wrong from right. I wait to move, but we wait more. Finally, Daddy takes my hand and Mama stands, and we walk down the aisle, out the colored car, and through the curtain. Next stop, Baltimore, Maryland. On the other side of the curtain is the dining car, with tablecloths and clinking glasses and white faces and good food smells that make my stomach growl and make me wish we hadn't eaten Grandma's fried chicken and hard-boiled eggs and lemon pound cake so soon. Next stop, Newark, Delaware. We walk past row after row of white folks who stare or turn away with eyes that say, "Keep moving," when they see us. Some put hands in empty seats, "Not here," and we keep walking, until we find smiles from new neighbors. Out the window, people turn and point, and I see water, a whole river, running long beside us. "It's the Delaware River," a mother says to her boy. "The book teacher gave me has pages filled with the story of a boy leaving behind what he knew and heading to what he don't. Just like me. Only he didn't have a ticket bought by his daddy and food packed by his grandma." So he was cold and hungry, but he kept on running at night with only the North Star to guide him along the Chesapeake and the Delaware River, in secret, getting help along the way, till he made his way walking to freedom north. Next stop, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I watch the tracks in front of me and behind me, just as far as the eye can see. Mama and Daddy say jobs, education, freedom are waiting in New York for us. And like the boy in the book, we all running from and running to at the same time. Last stop, New York City, Penn Station. We step off the train, and I stretch my neck to see bright lights, tall buildings, shimmering against the sky, bright as 100 North Stars. Daddy grabs our bags. I squeeze Mama's hand. The other holds tight to my book. This here is just the author's note at the end. After writing about the lives of Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman, I was very familiar with the intricate and elaborate network called the Underground Railroad. But I'd certainly never heard of the Overground Railroad, a term I discovered after reading Isabel Wilkerson's The Warmth of Other Suns. The Overground Railroad refers to the rail system that carried millions of blacks who left the South during the Great Migration. At times, this system was as much of a covert operation as the Underground Railroad, as the owners of farms who operated tenant farms, also called sharecropping, used threats of violence and other tactics to prevent workers from leaving. The sharecropping system kept many of its black tenants perpetually in debt to their landlords, and made it illegal to leave without permission or before repaying the debts incurred for planting and other supplies. As a result, many blacks departed on trains north under the cover of the night, or secretly boarded trains miles from home in neighboring towns for the chance at better employment, education, and a life in the North free from oppression. Overground Railroad is inspired by just one of the many stories of people who were running from and running to at the same time. All right, so that concludes our reading for today. Whoosh, our first book, the Lonnie Johnson story of Super Soakers, and Overground Railroad. Okay, these two books are good reads, especially for middle school students. So please vote. Overground Railroad was our replacement book, remember, since I didn't have Electrical Wizard. But still a good book. Again, another thought-provoking book, especially for our middle school age students. These could be good conversations to have about both of these. I like this one about persistence and not giving up on his dream. I like this one just, again, to kind of tell part history of America. So, again, share these with people you think would enjoy them. Any students that you know, any other children or parents that you think would enjoy, any other teachers that you think would enjoy. Please share this, and please go vote. We need to get those votes. That way we make sure we're getting a true winner every round, because we're almost done. We're almost done with round 1, and we'll be moving on to round 2 in a couple days. So thanks again. Mr. A signing off.